We're going to go through two quite extremely different looks. One is super long, working with lengths, working with some layers, some internal layers, some beautiful colour that Abbey's done. And then the next look is a little bit shorter than that. So we've got two things to really sort of get the old inspirational vibes going. What I'd firstly like to do is just show you a little short video, 30-second video, which will just give you a vibe of kind of what INDOLA's been doing, some of the events we've been doing over the past sort of few months, just to sort of refresh your memories. It's just a few of the things that we've sort of been showcasing, and we're obviously going to continue to do this through next year. We're going to try and create as many little seminar opportunities as possible, which we can stream live. For those of you that obviously don't make it live, these are going to be uploaded to YouTube. So, you know, you're going to be able to have access to all sorts of education either way, which is great. So regarding Street Style Collection, for those of you that are new to it, it's normally based around the trends that are happening globally. We always want to sort of take things that are really trending and vibing and kind of come up with a collection that really kind of works and showcases what people are doing. And then we try and simplify some techniques, cutting and colouring, to give you guys some ideas and inspirations that maybe you can take into your salon everyday life, because as we all know, we can get quite bored of just doing the same stuff over and over again, and of course so can our clients. So we try and stay, you know, keep everything really simple and smart, but show you avenues that you can introduce into your everyday salon work. So the idea of street style is not to do super mental, strong looks that are really unachievable, but to really sort of showcase you things that obviously we do show them to the stronger, on the stronger platform, but the techniques behind them allow you to filter them down into your everyday sort of world. So there's been a new drop now of the Street Style Collection, which we're going to kind of base this around, but what I really wanted to show you was the techniques that we use on the Street Style. It's not a copy and paste system, you know, so it's really a matter of, okay, let's learn the technique of how they did the haircut. Let's have a look at it. Let's look at the technique on how the color was achieved. And then let's take ideas from that, make it our own, and then try it out, whether it be, first of all, on dolls' heads or your mates, or straight onto clients if you feel up to it. But they are simple and easy to follow. And if you do go to YouTube and have a look at the latest drops, you can see a lot of inspirational cutting and colouring on there. So let's have a quick look at the first video, which will show you one of the latest two trends that we've just dropped. This collection and last year's collection have all been based around colour. So it was like the year of colour, ode to colour. A real beautiful build-up of shape, something that's really sort of changeable. And then the candy look was much softer on the edges, working with sort of a slight middle parting, lots of internal layers. And then there was like the beige blonde with the more sort of violet tones. And then the second drop, which we're going to kind of base this collection around a little bit more. So it's all about simplicity of haircut, really beautiful colour techniques. I think in that one they used the indigo blue from the Crea Bold, and then like a sort of peachy apricot for the buzz cut. So we've done like an interpretation of those two trends. Let's have a look at the buzz cut video just a little bit on its own, and then I will just talk you through it. The first look that we're going to work on is based around this look, so let's have a look at the video. Street style is based around lived-in hair. The other thing regarding the colour, the technique of the colour is really interesting because it showcases quite a strong blue, but it's kind of like you look at it and you're unsure, is that blue or is that just really glossy dark? And I think the execution of both of the cut and colour together create a really beautiful high-end luxe finish, even though you've got a really strong blue in there. Okay, so that's going to be the first one we're going to work on. Sectioning is obviously the starting point of any haircut. You need to kind of work out what is it I want to do. So for me, I want to create some movement around the face. I want all of the back to be super, kind of have a soft edge, but be very heavy and kind of luxe so that it moves. Then I might need a few little internal pieces just to release some of the weight. And then with the top, I just want to have a little bit of a disconnection in layers, but they need to be like this much shorter than the length. So it's really subtle, but just introducing these different movements really allow the hair to move and feel very fresh and luxe. So with regards to the sectioning, because I've got the front, the top and the base that I really want to focus on, I've sectioned the hair already to allow me to kind of work that way. So we have sectioned from, if you see here, where the head starts to curve, yeah, from there to just behind the ear. So we're really isolating that section around the face that we want to have the movement on. Continue that round. And then we've got all of the back in one section, and then exactly the same on the other side here, as you can see. We're going to start in the front area. Now obviously this is the focal point of the haircut. Okay, so here, this section is my layered area. Now this, of course, you can make bigger or smaller depending on your client or your model. Depends how many layers you want. So I've gone for kind of like an even balance here of layering. But if someone was a bit nervous about having some small layers in, you could make that slightly smaller. Or if they had super fine hair, for example, you would make that slightly smaller. So again, any of these techniques are adaptable according to the person. Nothing is copy paste. So what I really want to do here is just start to just release some of the weight around the face. So we're going to pull the hair forwards. Now the reason I'm pulling it forwards is because I want to maintain as much length in the base as possible. So the higher I lift it, the less angle I have to go. If I pull the hair down and cut away here, it becomes much stronger. Okay, so that elevation just means that it's going to be much prettier and a little bit softer. So, you know, we don't want to go mad here. And again, it's kind of up to you as to where you want the shortest point to sit. So you need to kind of plan that out by working with just checking the hair, so have a look at it. Do we want it the shortest point around the lip? Do we want it to be a little bit lower? Where do we want those little pieces, okay? So for us, I only want a couple of tiny little pieces to sit between the lip and the jaw, just really, really almost invisible. But that means that she can easily tuck it behind. It means she can tie her hair up. It's not going to be an issue. So there's just going to be a couple of pieces from here. and then the rest of it is going to build into this corner. Okay, so we'll just split this into two. Now remember, we're keeping that elevation. Okay, I'm just going to check here my length, and what I'm going to do is just slide a tiny bit, drop it, slide a tiny bit, drop it, slide a tiny bit, drop it. Okay, so it's really, really subtle and just creates a really pretty finish. So I go from my last guide there, slide it out, slide it out, slide it out. Okay, so we're doing it in 3 different goes. That is just going to start, if you have a look, to create a couple of tiny little pieces that sit just around here. Now remember, the hair's got to be blow dried, so that's going to lift up a little bit, and if I want to put a few more details in there when it's dry, I can. Okay, so really, really easy. 2 sections. First one, little slide stop, little slide stop, little slide stop. That will give you some irregularity within the front. Rather than going into that more dated feeling, I want it to feel quite lived in and a bit broken and unfinished. So we'll do exactly the same on the other side. So again, section the hair, 2 sections. Now, I've got a guideline from the other side here. So I want to use that guide in order to allow me to keep some sort of balance, okay? So this piece from the other side is going to be the guide as to where I start my 1, 2, 3, okay? So no matter, even though it's got that kind of unfinished vibe, it's still got some balance to it, okay? So I'm just going to take a small amount of that as a guide, and then you can see here, this is my point. So I'm just going to come from there, 1, 2, 3, okay? We'll just remove that bit of weight there. Just have one more check, just to make sure we got enough. So there's my guide, 1, 2, 3. And then we pull in our final section. So it's super easy. You know, this is really, really easy stuff to do, and really, really salon friendly, but just a slightly different approach. So I can see my last point here. So we're just going to go 1, 2, 3. Have a little look at her. Okay, so all we've done there is just introduce a few little pieces through the front just to give us a little bit of texture, but without removing the length from the base and without taking too much of that weight out through there. So it's just going to add some details. Now, another thing, you know, that's really important, I think, when you're working with your clients, even you just approaching the haircut differently, even though you're not taking loads of hair off, it's the way that you plan the haircut out, the way you put the sections in, the way you say to them, oh, I'm working on this new technique. People like that, you know. It doesn't need to be a dramatic change, but just the approach in which you finish the haircut or do the haircut makes your clients feel like you're evolving as a hairdresser. And I think that's really, really important. Okay, so the front I'm now happy with. That's enough, because obviously, you know, we've got half the hair in the front of the head than you do at the back. That's the same with everyone, because obviously, I know I say this a lot, but it's so relevant. The hairline ends here at the front, and the hairline ends here at the back. So you need to bear that in mind. If you put the same amount of layers in the front as you do the back, then it's going to feel much thinner through the front. So most people like to feel a bit heavier around the face because it's kind of unnatural. Okay, so moving into the back now. This is really, really simple way of working. So I'm going to spin her here. Now what I'm going to do is just take the front sections that I've cut already and just section those away. I do like to kind of keep everything nice and clean and controlled, because when you're working with more creative techniques, it's important that you know where you are and what you're doing, okay? Now, I'm going to break this down, so we're going to push our head down slightly. I'm going to go into the center. Okay, now I've got quite a lot of hair there, but at the same time, it doesn't really matter. What I want to do is just break it into two. So slightly diagonal, but only because I want this baseline to be quite square. So I'm just going to clip these sections away. So again, you know, keep in control of what you're doing. Okay, so we've just broken that into two sections, a bit like you would like with a classic, a classic haircut cutting technique, like a hot cross bun type vibe. Now we've just put that into there. Okay, so we're working on this underneath first. So we're going to split that in half. So I'm going to keep it quite close to the back. And we're just going to use the points of the scissors. Now, using the points of the scissors allows the hair to still move, okay? Even though I want it to be strong, I don't want to club cut it, because that kind of puts a, it stops the hair from free flowing as much. So I'm then going to take a small amount of what I've just cut from the center. You can see there's my guide, and then I'm just going to point cut away from there into the corner just to strengthen that baseline. Pull both sides back, check my balance, and then I take all of this section and put that into my base, okay? So we can comb all of that back. Again, you know, there's no need for hundreds of sections. As long as you can see your guide, then, you know, you should be able to work through it. So again, I'll just split it down the middle again. And you'll see here, as I pull all of this back, okay, there's my guide. So I can clearly see my guideline. Just use the tips of the scissors just to break that, but keep that edge super strong. Okay, nice and sharp, so nice and square as well. You'll see this much better when we stand her up in a minute. And then just take a little bit of that so that we've got a guide for the other side, and then comb the hair nice and tight. There's my guideline, and then just point cut to the other corner. So you're point cutting from the center away, and from the center away. So I'll just pull it all here and have a little check. All here, have a little check. Perfect. Okay, so you can see all of this hair here has come into the back, into that line there, which is going to leave a nice bit of weight around the front. Okay, so first two sections, elevate, take half, little bit, little bit, little bit. I only want a small amount of layering, but you can see here we've got this amount of hair to layer. Okay, so here you can see this is like one length. So all we want to do is just remove a little bit of that length, just in order to give us a tiny bit of movement through the top. So we're now working on this top area here. Now think about, the further you push it forwards, the softer it's going to be. The more you pull it back, the heavier it's going to be. So with these kind of invisible layers, you don't want to be pulling them out this way, because you're going to create quite a bit of a line. We want these to be really, really seamless, okay? So if anything, I'm going to be pulling them kind of as high as I can. Now, again, because this is just a real freehand sort of vibe, I'm going to take it all as one. Everything is going to be pulled into the middle, which means that as the hair drops, it's going to sort of separate and be really, really pretty with no sort of interruptions or lines. Then you should be able to just twist that, stay in the middle, keep a nice bit of tension, and we're literally just going to take away these ends on this top here. Okay, so just that amount has gone. And that naturally gives us this really kind of soft edge. So you can't see any lines in that. It's really, really soft and broken, but you still have a balance because of the sections that you've put in, okay? So as they drop now, it's balanced from either side because the curve that I put in was even. You can see here, where this has dropped, here's the baseline. So some of that still hits the baseline. I'm going to have a look at that and see if I need to check it off when it's dry. But that is basically your first broken down haircut, which is super simple, really easy to kind of do every day in the salon when we bring all this hair forwards. You can see it's starting to look really cool. You can see just sitting around the face, you've still got a really nice strong baseline through the front, super, super long. And then the layers here are just kind of encouraging the hair to have a little bit more lift and movement. Now the last thing I'm going to do just before she goes off to Abbey for a blow dry is section the hair down the middle at the back. So straight down the middle at the back there, and we're just going to check off the corners at the front just to make sure that we've got a really nice, there you go, it's just that tiny little bit there. Just making sure that the hair, when it sits forward, sits nice and strong and square. I quite like that to be a bit squarer there as opposed to being too round. And again, this, you know, can now be worn in any direction. Doesn't have to be central. Really simple haircut. Put your section in that you want layering into the top, split the front into the middle and go to behind the ear, and then have all of the rest of it as your baseline. So start with the front, a little bit of elevation through both sides, then put your baseline into the back. You can split that into two if the hair's fine. You might not even need to split it. You could just take it as one and just put your soft edge but strong base in with 0 degree elevation. And then your top section, the circle that you put in, depending on the size, elevate up and just slide away the corner in order to give you those really free-flowing soft layers. Okay. Perfect. So we're going to load her now with the INDOLA mousse and some of the volume and blow dry spray, and then we're going to bring her back on when she's blow dried. First of all, beautiful colour that Abbey's created, and like I said, she's going to go through that with you in a moment when she's finished doing my blow dry. So the key to this trend is we kind of felt like, especially after like COVID and all of that sort of stuff, people have been kind of just wanting to start again and kind of refresh and rejuvenate their energy. And so a lot of people have been kind of buzzing their hair down or taking sections and buzzing them off, and it can actually be really quite an expressive, I don't know, like energy, you know, just to buzz your hair off. So it's kind of like in the latest collection, as you saw, we did the peach apricot on the street style, but again, you know, it doesn't have to be that colour. You can choose whichever colour palette you want to work with your client. This also looks really nice as like a raw bleach. So again, it's kind of up to you. But what I do with buzz cuts is rather than going too short straight away, I like to just get them to a length where they're kind of manageable. So for example, if you've got a bob or someone with shortish hair, the easiest thing to do, just to give you your sort of foundation, is to just get your clippers. I mean, I normally go for like a grade 6, 5 or 6 as like my base length. And then you obviously just run it all the way through the head just to give you like a nice even balance, which obviously I've already done here. That will give you like a platform to kind of work on. But as you can see, it's like the same length all the way over. So now for some people you can do this and it actually looks really, really good. You know, it looks great as it is. But I actually then like to work in a little bit of texture to adapt the shape to fit the face, you know. So if it needs to be tapered in a little bit through the edges, or if I want to break any texture so that maybe you can still use some product, because, you know, I think people like the flexibility of still being able to do something with their hair. So this sort of length is still stylable. You know, you can still style the hair, you can still manipulate the hair if you use the right product. So what I'm going to do first of all is just going to taper the hair in just a little bit. Again, I don't really want it to be much different, but I feel here it's just a little bit heavy through this area. I quite like what's happening through the sides. I quite like this kind of soft edge here. And then I feel like on the top, I just want to break it a little bit more. Just like disorganize it so that it's a little bit more sort of street and a bit rougher. So in order to start, I'm going to work into the back. Okay, so I'm going to work the comb in. Okay, now I'm going to elevate the comb out like this. Okay, now that scooping mechanism there allows everything to be much softer. Okay, if I keep the comb against the head like this, it becomes much more aggressive. So again, depending on what you want to do, it's kind of up to you, but I want to just be a bit softer, and I'm just going to go in with the points of the scissors. So I'm not going to kind of like scissor over comb it to make it shorter, like as in go this way, which would remove all of my length. I'm just going to remove parts of the weight and the length by running my scissors and comb up the hair with a slight sort of scoop in the comb to soften it just a little bit, and just use the tips of my scissors to kind of break through some of that length and give me a little bit more shape and texture. So do the same on both sides. Now the key is to kind of have your scissors on a slight angle as opposed to going straight in. If you go straight in, you're just going to soften, but you're not really going to remove much length. Whereas if you go in on a slight angle, you're going to just take a little bit more length out, but still keep it soft. But what you don't want to do is like this, because you're going to create lines in the hair. So you need to be more around this sort of angle from there to there. Anywhere within there is okay. Anything too far over here, and you might have a few problems, okay? So just keep an eye on that scissor angle as you're working through into the weight and the length of the shape. So we're going to take that all the way up just to like where the sort of occipital bone is, so just to this area here. It's only really that bottom area that I want to start to reduce the weight just a little bit. Okay, so you can see how that has just slightly started to allow the hair to sit in a little bit more. I'm now just going to use the tips of my scissors. I want to keep the hairline broken, so I don't want it to be too sort of aggressive. I still want that sort of pretty softness to it. So I'm just using, again, the tips of the scissors just to sort of sculpt that in, just working visually, trying to sit that into the neck a little bit softer, so we don't have these sort of big jumpy areas. So you can see that just sits really soft. Let's just turn it to the side. So can you see that's just tapered it in just a tiny little bit into the back there, which is nice. What I also need to do is just remove any of these little fluffy areas around the hairline, so I can just use my little mini trimmers and just remove anything that needs to come off around there. So I'll just clean it up a little bit. Also sometimes just using the corner just to kind of taper that in is quite nice, just through that nape area. Okay, now around the ears, just here, we'll just taper that in just slightly. So I'm just tapering the hairline of Kizzy's hair just to sort of sit that shape in just a little bit around the face, okay? So now you've got things like hairlines through the front. If you want to sharpen this up, some people like to sharpen off the sideburns. Personally, I like to keep those a little bit softer. So now I want to add a little bit more texture to it. So can you see the hair direction? Now, if I go in this way, I'm going to have a massive line. Okay, so I've got to go in this way, so the way that the hair shaft is driving. So as I work around, my scissors need to change to this direction. I really need to be aware, making sure that my scissors maneuver around the head shape, so that I'm not creating any lines or anything. All it is just a small amount of texture. So you can see now, as I start to just move the hair, it starts to be a bit manipulatable, you know, so it's not just staying super static, it's really allowing me to kind of work with it. Okay, so you can see it's super soft, super subtle. Stand back and assess your shape. Now when you're scissor over combing as well, it's important not to do this with your hands. Okay, keep your thumb, so your thumb moves and the scissors stay straight. So it's much better to work like that. You have much more control as you work like this as opposed to like that. When you do that, you tend to push into the hair, which basically creates those lines. Whereas if you get control and just use your thumb, you can really keep control of that edge. Okay, so can you see now, like you can see when I stand behind it, you see you start to get all these little pieces of texture start to just maneuver within the hair shape, which basically just allows the hair to kind of feel a bit more disrupted, you know, so it's not just been buzz cut, it's kind of got a little bit of a flare to it as well, you know, so it's been tapered and it's been sat to sit and fit Kizzy's head shape. Let me just check the balance there. Okay, so this is the thing. Sometimes when you kind of do your buzz cuts, you know, you still need to do a little bit of work after them. They don't just need to be buzzed and left. It's still a haircut and you still need to adapt it. Okay, now a great product for these type of buzz cuts is the volume and blow dry spray. actually spray it into dry hair, okay, and start to manipulate it, and then we dry that in, and it will just allow us to distort the shape a little bit more and really kind of, you know, make something a little bit more unusual with it, even though you've just got this really short, buzzed out haircut. You can see already it starts to look a bit more lived in and a bit cooler, like once you put some product in. So, you know, you can be quite generous with it. We all know this can be quite strong, but you need a little bit of strength there. And then with the hairdryer without a nozzle, I'm just going to push the hair just with my fingers in different directions. And just kind of push against the scalp really, and just allow the hair to kind of break. And as it dries, it starts to stick up in places, starts to sit down in others where your fingers are. And also, like, using the cooling button is a really good tip for this. So medium heat, medium speed, but then I use my cooling button just to kind of set it. Because it's short, it needs to be set in the direction that I want it. So medium, medium, fingers, create some flatter pieces, then press the cooling button and allow the hair to be a bit more ruffled. So you can really start to see the texture now coming through. So you don't need to dry it 100%. But you can see already that now just looks a little bit more distorted. It's got a little bit of something to it as opposed to it just simply looking like a buzz cut. I'm going to finish it with a little bit of the shine wax. Now again, this is great because it's got a real sort of like kind of a wet vibe to it, but it's not too heavy. So you can layer it up accordingly. But for me, I just want to just run it through and just allow some pieces to kind of jump out and some pieces to sit tight, just to create that nice sort of shape there. Super cool, this colour, really like it.
Okay, so here for the bleach, she's actually already had a pre-bleach, which was beautiful anyway, and there was a tiny little bit of a root, which I actually really liked. It just gives it a little bit more of a grungy feel. And then what we've done to start with, I wanted to pre-tone to get this beautiful, more lavender style blue. So I used the pastel lavender just on its own with just a little bit of conditioner for 10 minutes just to neutralise, and that came out like a very sort of a lilac-y, pastel-y, beautiful neutral colour. And then from that I've then used the pastel lavender mixed with a little bit of turquoise blue and again a little bit of conditioner, applied that all over and left that for 15 minutes. And what you're left with then is this beautiful dusty sort of blue, which obviously is nothing like the apricot colour from the inspo, but it works really well with her haircut, the little bit of root that she's got because she's got an ashy root anyway. And yeah, I think it all pulls together nicely with Andy's haircut.
Yeah, I think sometimes simplicity is key with the colour, and obviously in the street style we worked more heavier with the colour on the top and then softened it towards the edges. Whereas here, Abbey wanted to introduce a bit of a root to it, so it looked a bit more lived in. But then if you have the root plus the dark plus the
we were originally going to do something like that, but actually this colour worked beautifully as it is on its own without the need for other tones because of the root that's in there.
Yeah, and I think sometimes less is more, you know. I mean, she looks great. You don't need to overcomplicate this. It's a cool little haircut. She's rocking it. It's got a lovely soft powdery blue finish with a root. So yeah, I think she looks good.
Yeah.
So model number one, we're going to let her work her magic. Nice, you can see, so it's a lovely shape, really works with her cheekbones. And again, sometimes, you know, less is more. So yeah, beautiful. Looks great. You can really see the shine and the finish on that colour. So we've left one section out just so that you can see kind of what's happening. Now, the key to the street style inspired sort of look that we did was really to create like a super luxe finish within the hair, so that it had that polish, it had that heaviness, it had the movement, and it looks expensive. So even though you're working with strong colours, if you have that really simple, strong edged haircut, something that's just really beautiful and high quality, the two together merge really, really well. You know, sometimes people associate strong colours with mental haircuts, but actually if you simplify it and do a strong colour with a really beautiful, simple haircut, but make sure the finish is really good. We used the mousse all the way through, mixed in a little bit of the glamorous oil, put it all the way through, but sort of left a little bit off the root all the way through. And then obviously Abby's blow dried it in sections and pinned it with a pin curl. Now this will allow the hair to dry. This isn't to create curl, it's just to create a bit of a movement and a vibe, because when I brush it all out, it's going to drop. That's what we want. But this will give us that really high quality finish. If you look at the way Abby's using the nozzle from all angles of the root to really smooth everything out. You can see the sections are quite big, so the hair's been kind of rough dried before we then work in. So this is a really important point now, and that's making sure that you get the ends of the hair. Okay, the ends of the hair give you that real quality. A lot of people blow dry the hair and then kind of stop at the ends. You need to make sure you lock the ends right the way in with the blow dry in order to give you that really beautiful finish. So now Abby's elevating the hair a little bit more, just to encourage a bit more movement within the shape. She's using my brush. These brushes are lovely actually. I tend to use these as opposed to the ceramic brushes. They don't heat up too much, which can sometimes damage the hair if you use ceramic on super high heat. So just roll the hair right the way in. Again, allow that to kind of just set, and then we're going to go straight in with the roll. You can see the hair's being rolled. Now you've got to make sure you don't buckle the ends. So make sure the ends are dropping, there you go, just like that. And then you pop that clip in. A luxe quality to the hair, a nice finish. So as I'm brushing it out, I'll just use a little bit of flexible hairspray. And that's another thing that you need to be aware of, is if you don't put enough product into the hair, when you start brushing it, you potentially are going to get like quite a static feeling. Now another nice thing about these brushes is they don't encourage static. So if you've put the right products in and blow dried it properly, you should really be able to kind of maneuver the hair and do what you want with it. You can see you can kind of push it around, and it's got a lovely texture to it if I want to really work it. But really nice finish to it. Well done, Abby. 10 out of 10. Look at the shine. It's beautiful. Okay, let me just pull all these out and then we'll have a look and see if I need to do anything else, because normally when I cut long hair, I do sometimes need to go back in and just have a little a little look at it to see if anything's needed. And we should be all right, but it's always good just to kind of check it out. If you want to have a little bit of lift, going back's quite nice on the top two sections. And then we can put our parting in accordingly to where we want it to be. I don't want it to be too voluminous. I want it to be kind of a bit more like Cool Girl, so a little bit flatter in that parting area. But just make sure you brush the hair right the way through. Make sure you get rid of any sort of like lines or anything from the sectioning. So the same as if you do a tong, you know, it's important that you pull that sort of set all the way through the hair. Okay, I mean, it's looking pretty damn good, if I do say so myself. You liking it? Mm-hmm. Colour's gorgeous as well, really nice. Okay, so I'm just going to check my details just around the face, just to make sure that I'm happy with my little breaks through the front, which I think I am, but I'm just going to double check it, because remember, when the hair's dry it moves, so I just want to make sure it's soft enough through some of these areas here. So if you see that, now you can see that it's quite erratic, and that's what you want. Yeah, you don't want this to be all the same. You really want those little breaks, and by just using those three little sort of slices, it's a really nice way to make sure that you don't make it too balanced, so that you have these long pieces with these short pieces here, and it just gives you that kind of Cool Girl sort of vibe. I just want to loosen that front section just a touch, just so I can manoeuvre that a little bit. And then again, the same on the other side, just that front section. Pull the hair forwards. Have a little look if I need to just remove a little bit of length. So you can see how these long pieces kind of make it a bit cooler. You know, so you have that short with that long there. Just looks much better rather than cutting everything away. And it really makes sure that this baseline is super strong. Can you see there? Okay, so you've got that nice luxe quality in the base. Now, when you've blow dried it like this, you know, you should be able to really manipulate the hair. Don't worry about touching it. You know, once it's done properly, you know, it will just kind of do what you want it to do. So it's really making sure that you load the hair with the right product. So you're using like a mousse all the way through, take it in sections, layer it all the way up, a little bit of oil if you want to blow dry that in, or you can wait till the end to put the oil in if you're a bit worried that it might be a little bit too heavy. So again, you can see those layers through the back. Let's just have a look at those. Just pull it all back and just show you guys, just spin around for me. Can you see? So really, they're really near to the baseline, really close, but they just allow you to have a little bit more volume through this top section if you want it. You know, it gives you a little bit of swing and a little bit of movement within those ends rather than it all being totally one length. So it's quite nice to have that as an option, and it's a nice way to introduce layering to, you know, maybe clients that are a little bit worried about them. So a bit of glamorous oil. Just put your head back for me.
When Eleanor turned up today, she had a gorgeous natural gradient in her hair where it went from darker into lighter, and I just thought, what a waste not to enhance that. She's had reds before. To start with, then it was mainly the 666 with just a smidge, like 10 grams of 566 to get that depth in the top, and then I've smashed that into the 866. So it's the darkest red going into the lightest red.
Again, you can see that's like really sexy, cool girl, luxe hair. Just stand up for me. You can actually see the baseline. Okay, so you can see just with those little pieces just through the front, just for sort of adding some detail, you know, that will sit really nice. No matter what you kind of do with it, you know, you can really feel free to play with it. The fact that you've cut it all forwards means that you kind of get that manoeuvrability to be able to kind of wear it however she wants to wear it. And I think that's the key now, is not to cut things in a certain particular way for one haircut. You need to cut things that move and that are free and that have like some nice sort of movement within it and some really beautiful sort of layering. Look at that, I mean that is such gorgeous hair. Lucky, lucky girl. Look at it. I mean it's just beautiful, that shape, the way that you've got that really heavy baseline in there. Yeah, give it a little swing for us. Can you see that baseline is super heavy, but then you've got the little breaks here with those soft layers, and you can see these tiny little details just running through the front that give you that little bit of sort of cool girl energy. And now you can kind of just swing it around and do what you like with it. Lovely shape. So you can see there from the back, it's really nice as well, like those layers. You can see how they just sort of break in. They kind of, you're not sure where they start, where they finish. It makes it a little bit more sort of lived in and a bit more cool girl, as opposed to being too heavily layered and predictable with like a square layer or a round layer. Just putting those little bits of disconnections in and those little pieces through the front give you that real sort of soft wow factor to something really luxe, and then that beautiful colour. Looks great. So totally different vibes, but they both kind of fit together really nicely, which is great. Okay, making sure that, you know, when you're styling the hair, if in the salon or whatever, I think layering of product is quite a key element to making someone's hair look cool. If you want to make them a little bit cooler, you layer more product into the hair, give it that really luxe finish. And look at the way that Eleanor's hair is moving. It's just swinging, it's got a lovely finish to it, high shine. The idea is with our street style seminars that we're doing is we are going to make sure that we move right the way through the short hair, the long hair, the different tones, and really try and give you as much information and sort of direction as possible. Also, if you go onto YouTube and go onto the INDOLA official, and subscribe to that, or even just check it out, you can see all of the latest work that we've done, the breakdown of the colours, which exact colours were used, how they were used, how the hair was cut, all the section patterns, and everything.
You know, there's great things happening at INDOLA. Get on the Instagram, get on the YouTube channel and see what's happening. So all that's left for me to do is again thank our lovely models for being, for being here today. I think what the guys created was absolutely wonderful, real mix. Thanks to Tally, one of the unsung hero who looks after all our AV back there. So thanks very much for that. And then a really big obvious thank you to Andy and Abbey. And then finally just a big thanks to you. And we'll see you next time.